Now, strategic management is a tool in the hands of the management to decide upon various strategies in terms of gaining the competitive edge in today's competitive world. A set of managers, they take decisions and actions that determines the long-term performance of the corporation. It includes the internal and external environmental scanning, the strategy formulation, the strategy implementation. And once the strategy is implemented, its evaluation and control. Globalization is the integration and internationalization of markets and corporations. Now here, innovation reflects the new ideas, new ideas in terms of maybe product development, searching for a new channel of distribution, new idea of promotion of the product into the market, etc. Innovation in any type of this. Okay, now here we say that it is innovation and sustainability. So here, uh, to sustain the environmental factors, how the companies strive with the help of R&D department to come up with the innovation. How countries, people, business around the world are becoming more close, or they are coming very much closer or are interlinked as forces like technology, transportation, media, and global finance make it easier for goods, services, ideas, and people to cross the traditional boundaries. Now, when it comes to the benefit of this globalization, it gives an access to the new cultures. So here we had seen the example of McDonald's. When they entered initially in India, it did not succeed. But slowly and steadily it got accustomed to the culture, Indian culture. What are the likes of people? What are the preferences of the people? And accordingly they molded the products. But globally, if you see, some standards map with the global strategies. While when it comes into specific region or specific country, there is molding of some strategies with reference to the marketing mix according to the norms or cultural aspect, the social aspect of those countries. So here, when a company enters other nation, it gives access to understand and learn the new culture. And if the company wants to survive or sustain in the market, it has to mold this marketing mixes part to enter into that particular market for the sake of expansion. If you want to gain the loyalty of the customers, if you want the customers to use the product or the service, then the company should strive hard here to reach the customers by satisfying the customers. Again, the spread of technology and innovation. Now, today, because of the digital era or digital technology, many innovations is possible. As far as reaching the customers is considered, spreading the awareness and promotion of products is considered. If If in a particular country a particular product is produced and the customer is somewhere in other nation, due to this digitization, it becomes much more easy for the corporates to reach the customers. Also, today, because of the advent of this social media platforms, it becomes easy to spread the word of mouth among the customers. If your company thinks of placing an ad online, it is very much faster, it is cheaper, and you reach the customer. Now, low costs for products. When you think of penetrating into the foreign nation, you think of expansion, penetrating into the other country. Here, and unless and until a company goes for marketing research, it does not take up such type of activities. So here, the companies have certain demand forecasting aspect. Once the orders start pouring in, the production processes increases, the costs are spread over the per unit cost of the product, and ultimately uh, the costs are spread, and hence it gives company the economies of the scale. That is, at the lower cost, the company is able to provide the product to the customers. Higher standards of living across the globe. Now here, when we speak of standardization comes with the certain prerequisites or benchmarks. It sets its own benchmarks. So here, when the customer is buying a product or purchasing a product, he perceives the product in terms of certain preconceived notions about the product. The brand itself reflects the value of the product. And value creation in this global economy is a challenging task for the managers. Access to the new markets. Now, here, this globalization gives access to the new markets. So, when this globalization and liberalization, privatization started, it gave access to companies to enter into foreign nations. Now, as we had studied the mode of entries, the different options are available for those corporates to enter into new markets with the help of maybe the joint venture or the licensing trade agreements. These companies look out for the new markets and enter into the foreign nations. Initially, they may face some problems or some challenges, but with the time, the things get sorted out, and easily these companies have access to these foreign markets. Similarly, with the access of new markets, they come to know about different resources, pool of resources available in the foreign nation. Now, here it may be with reference to the supplies, the raw material, the ease in the production processes, the access to the new talent. Now, here many of the companies they may find that after entering, uh, the restrictions by the government are not that stringent in a particular company, and also the foreign nation has a pool of talent as far as the human resource is considered. So the company can think of starting up production plant or the manufacturing plant in this country, and also recruit the personals of the caliber which is required by the companies or the corporates. So globalization gives this ease to these corporates to utilize the resources, the talent pool to the optimum level to increase the efficiency and gain profits in this market, foreign markets. Now, though there are the benefits of globalization, there is the other important, very important side, that is the challenges part. Challenges to the strategic management part. Now, here, when we speak in terms of challenges to the strategic management, it involves some aspects like from the HR point of view, like international recruitment. So, here again, it depends upon the organizational framework or structure of the organization. Suppose if the organization, the corporation believes in the structure, centralized form of structure, then it takes into consideration the international recruitment of the employees. The employees, irrespective of any cultural backgrounds, have to travel abroad, understand people there, understand the culture there. Here, it requires that the personnel is trained. Now, against this, if the company believes in the decentralization, so here the individual subunits are responsible for the functioning of their own unit. In that case, the recruitment is on the divisional basis. So here, many a times, a person, an employee may be technically an expert, but suppose he is totally unaware of the cultural aspect or background of a particular nation, then it becomes very much difficult for the companies to place such a person in that region. So here, entering into a foreign nation is one part, and managing these challenges becomes the other important critical part. Managing people immigration. Now, here, this depends upon the restrictions of the government or the requirements of the government as far as immigration criteria or aspect is considered. Here is the responsibility of the corporate or organization to make arrangements of an employee with reference to their immigration aspects. All the government's norms have to be fulfilled. Now, incurring tariffs and export fees is one of the factors. In some countries, the tariffs are very high. Even the export fees are very high. They vary with the national rules and regulations. In this case, many a times it becomes easier for the companies to start the manufacturing or the assembling operations in the country where it wants to enter rather than either export these products in that particular nation. Even In the global scenario, the payroll and compliance is one of the challenging aspects for the managers. Now here the other part is, as far as the payroll and compliance is considered, the rules and regulations again of different countries they vary. Next thing is the changes in the currency is a factor which plays a very important role. Then there is loss of cultural identity. When you penetrate into the foreign nation, your original cultural identity is somewhere lost. As you penetrate into the foreign nation, you try to imbibe the values and culture of the that country where you are entering. Many a times not willingly, but unwillingly also you have to adapt to this values and culture of the country where foreign nation where the company is entering. When a company thinks of globally expanding beyond its host country, these are the difficulties faced by the companies. Now here, in this case, if they recruit the foreign employees in that particular nation, the locals it should be acceptable. There is fear from the localites of losing the job. So here they have to manage in between resourcing the pool from the foreign nations as well as meeting the local demands. These are the challenges. Now, a decade ago, the companies did not care much about the environmental factor or environmental aspect. The resources were in abundance. There was no need to think about it. Up to the later part of 20th century, the things were very much fine as far as this environmental aspect was considered. A business firm could be very successful without being environmentally sensitive or concerned. The companies used to dump their waste products in nearby streams, lakes, and freely exchange the products, freely pollute the air with the smoke containing poisonous gases. Now, slowly and steadily, due to awareness of the government or awareness of the people responding to the complaints from the people or the NGOs, government eventually had to pass laws or restrictions as far as this environmental factors were considered. The corporates used to freely contaminate air, water, soil, or depletion of the ozone layer. The government measures of being protective in terms of environmental aspects force the companies to stop these old practices and be more concerned about these environmental factors. Here, most of the managers considered pollution measures to be a cost of business. Now, that should either be minimized or avoided. Now, here, many of the corporates they felt that rather than cleaning up manufacturing site, they thought often of closing the plant and moved manufacturing offshore to a developing nation where the restrictions as far as the environmental factors were considered were much less. So there is no headache of these environmental factors. Now, sustainability as a term was used to describe competitive advantage, not the environment. during those days, previously, in the older days. But now, even this environmental factor has been one of the important criteria or a mark in terms of sustainability for the corporate organizations. Now, here again, the government restrictions with reference to this laws they differ from one country to the other country. So here today, if you see again, this has this sustainability in terms of environmental factor in the globalization has given rise to innovation that is coming up with the eco-friendly or environmental friendly products so as to preserve the natural environment. Now coming to the impact of globalization. The globalization gives rise to the integration of markets and corporations, which has changed the way or the scenario the modern corporations do the business. Now, as Thomas Friedman says, the world is flat. The world is flat in the sense that today the jobs, the knowledge, the technology, and the capital are able to move across borders with a faster speed and far less friction than few years ago. Today, because of the digital revolution, with the help of the internet, these things have become much more easier. In no time, one can think of transferring the money. In no time, one can think of sharing the knowledge or the technical expertise among the corporates. Today, the phones are collaborating or coming together in terms of optimizing channels, networks, supply chain logistical improvements, the internet revolution, the technological innovations. Now, with all these factors coming together, the companies can work anywhere across the globe and with the multiple partners. So, these factors have given a new edge or a platform for the corporations to come together, integrate their expertise, and work together across the globe. Now, here, if you take into consideration the expansion of the market that is reaching the masses or penetrating the market much becomes much more easier with this collaborative aspect of the corporations. They gain the economies of scale by offering the product at the lower cost, which has become one of the important criteria in this competitive world. Companies are thinking of moving to global markets rather than restricting to their national boundaries. They are trying to understand the needs and preferences of the customers in the foreign nations. The companies, the Nike and the Reebok, which manufacture the athletic shoes in various countries throughout Asia for sale on every continent. Now, many other companies in North America and Western Europe are outsourcing their manufacturing software developments or customer service to companies in China, Eastern Europe, or India. Now, large pool of talented software programs, the hold on the English language proficiency, lower wages in India enables many companies, especially if you take into consideration today the IT companies like the service providers like IBM, TCS, Infosys, all of them, they get the projects from these foreign nations. They outsource many of the projects to the Asian countries. So here, by placing this responsibility offshore, these corporations, okay, they have been able to concentrate on the customers globally as they have given this responsibility totally to some other company in the foreign nation which takes care of the process part, and in return they pay for these companies. That is what how works basically. So outsourcing has become one of the major aspect of this globalization. The companies entering into this global businesses, they just outsource the services, maybe the assembling part of the products or production part of the processes to some other countries, and even they are relieved as the responsibility lies on these companies, and the company can concentrate more on the expansion of the markets. Large corporations are now using matrix structures in which product units are interwoven with country or regional units. International projects assignments are now considered key for anyone interested in reaching top management. As companies reach for globalization, the importance of this strategic management, it's becoming increasingly important way to keep track of international developments and position a company for a long-term competitive advantage. For example, General Electric, that is GE, moved from a major R&D lab for its medical system division from Japan to China in order to learn more about developing new products for developing economy. Microsoft's largest research center at Wharton and outside Redmond, Washington is in Beijing. Now, even the formation of regional trade association and agreements has proved to be successful, like the European nation, now European Union. It's the most significant trade association in the world. The goal of this EU is to complete economic to compete with the economic integration of its 27 members countries so that goods made in one part of Europe can move freely without stopping for a customs inspection. Now, these includes Austria, Belgium, Czech Republic, Denmark, Ireland, Luxembourg, Poland, etc. All these companies now they have come together to form an association. Now, European Union is less than half the size of US of America, but has 50% more population. So such a huge market potential it has. Similarly here, it has given rise to the one currency aspect, that is euro, which again integrates the monetary system. Similarly, if you consider an association like NAFTA, that is the American Free Trade Agreement. Now, the goal of this is to improve the trade among these three member countries rather than compete for the economy. Canada, the US, and the Mexico are affiliated economies under this trade agreement. So here, other than this, you can think of Mexico, Andean community, the CAFTA, and the Asian, which is changing how the international business is being conducted. Now, these associations, trade associations are formed with the objective of helping each other to enter into foreign nations and mutually gaining the profits. Now, significant tariffs has forced corporations to establish manufacturing facilities in these global regions. Now, these associations have led to the increasing harmonization of standards so that products can move more easily across these national boundaries. So, once the country becomes a part of this association, by adhering the norms and agreeing to the norms of this association, it becomes a part of this global business. So entering into the foreign nations becomes much more easier task for these companies. The next is the impact of environmental sustainability. Now, environmental sustainability refers to business practices to reduce a company's impact upon natural physical environment. Now, today the climatic changes play a very important role in business decisions. The government has imposed rules and regulations as far as the conservation of energy, water, soil, air, the emissions prevalence of the infectious disease. All these aspects are considered. The effects of climate changes on industries and companies throughout the world can be grouped into six categories of risks. Now, first one, if you consider the regulatory risks, that is the government control on the operations of these corporations with reference to environmental factors. Now, here it is expected that the company should take into consideration these environmental factors in totality. Now, Kyoto Protocol is one of the important thing which binds the developed countries. It recognizes that they are largely responsible for the current high levels of greenhouse gases emissions in the atmosphere. So if we consider in this, there are 37 countries and the European Union which have come together, which follow the norms of this Kyoto Protocol. So the company has to adhere to these emission norms set by the government of that particular nation. Companies that earn credits by investment in emissions outside their own firms also, they build their reputation and the goodwill. Now here, when a company gains an advantage by following the protocols, then they earn the credits, they earn the goodwill, their reputation. Now, how does this matter? Earning the goodwill or the reputation. Suppose if the company, one of the corporation fails to maintain this criteria, then naturally it will be penalized by the government or the regulatory authority, which is reflected in terms of the reputation and goodwill of the company. Specifically, when the corporations are entering into the foreign nations, these things have to be taken care of. One has to have very good reputation and maintain the goodwill. The next is the supply chain risks. Suppliers will be increasingly vulnerable to government and regulations, leading to higher components and energy costs as they pass along increasing carbon related costs to their customers. Now here today if we see the environmental factors like the intensity of storms, floods, melting of ice, increase which gives rise to the increase in the sea level problems. Increase in the sea level leads to problems faced by the seaports, which are essential for the supplies, the depletion of resources. The agricultural land is affected, which again affects the quality. The climatic conditions are unpredictable nowadays. We do not have control on this. Now, fossil based fuels like petroleum, diesel, kerosene, etc., they are depleting. Now, as they are depleting, it reflects on the transportation costs. The transportation cost has started to rise. So, when the transportation cost starts increasing, the companies think of shifting these manufacturing facilities near to the resource availability, wherever the resources, especially where you consider the natural resources, there the companies start shifting the production facilities to minimize the transportation costs. Similarly, as we have seen, there are government norms, restrictions, tariffs. Considering all these factors, also the companies think of shifting the manufacturing base to the foreign nation. If there are droughts, it also affects the functioning of the business. The floods affect the functioning of the businesses. So here, these are certain supply chain risks as far as the environmental sustainability is considered. Now the next is a product and technological risks. Risk. Environmental sustainability can be a prerequisite to profitable growth. Now here, when the companies they increase the investments where the foreign direct investments is allowed in the in gaining a competitive edge by investing in the projects, wind energy, solar energy, hydropower energy. So here it gains a competitive advantage when the company thinks of investing. They always will have a competitive advantage in terms of reflections as far as the reputation and goodwill of the company is considered. It can the companies can think of stressing the marketing mix part with reference to this eco-friendly products. Carbon friendly products using new technologies are becoming increasingly popular with the consumers. Now here it gives the companies an edge to think about innovative products or making this as a USP, the company's USP while entering the foreign nation. If we today we consider the automobile industry, due to high emissions, the entry of vehicles is restricted. Now the companies are moving to the electric vehicles, which is because of the advent of this high emissions. Similarly, the waste disposals or the packaging part, that is many of the companies are stressing on the Tetra packs or use of recyclable products, biodegradable products, recycling of waste. All these innovations in this aspect has arisen because of these aspects. Similarly, the public interest groups. There are some people or the masses who are creating the awareness of these environmental factors among the customers. And even now, the customers are demanding the products, the eco-friendly products, or the environmental considered products, environmentally considered products. So again, this has given an opportunity for the organizations to think about this. There are many battery operated vehicles. So when a company thinks of entering into a foreign nation in terms of either they want to invest in solar energy or hydel power, the foreign nation where the company is entering may get some subsidies as far as the taxes are considered. Making use of biodegradable components has become a necessity today. Next is the litigation risk. Litigation risk. The carbon emissions is one of the important thing. Here the company has to adhere to the norms of the government, the restrictions. Otherwise, they are penalized. Now, here if you take an example of a Coca-Cola, the beverages company, when it entered the Kerala, they had faced a lot of problems. The villagers has had banned it. There were problems at was as far as the water table depletion is considered. There was shortage of water supply in the nearby villages, and the people complained to the government that there is a or the environmental concern organizations. The company had to face a lot of problems there. Also, the quality of water mattered. So the multinational companies, when entering into the foreign nation, has to be more concerned about these factors also. As Warren Buffett says, it takes 20 years to build a reputation and only 5 minutes to ruin it. So the company should be more concerned about building a reputation and maintaining it. That is a reputational risk. A company's impact on environment can heavily affect company's reputation. The brand image will get affected. A company with good record of environmental sustainability will get a competitive advantage in the competitive market. It will help them in attracting the customers, retaining the customers, maintaining their loyalty. Even from the employees' point, the employees will have the pride working for such organizations who are concerned, who maintain their goodwill, and even for other stakeholders like the investors. Now, Walmart's environmental sustainability approach has helped soften its negative reputation as low wage, low benefit employer. Now, if we consider the tools for measurement of sustainable asset management or Business Weekly, which publishes the best sustainable companies, Dow Jones Sustainability Index, and KLD Broad Market Social Index, which considers environmental, social, and governance as a criteria for investment decisions. So, here it has long term repercussions. When a company thinks of sustainable asset management or when it takes into consideration this environmental sustainability part very seriously, it is reflected in terms of investment decisions in terms of creating an alliance with some other country. All these factors are taken into consideration. Financial services firms like Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase, and Citigroup have adopted guidelines for lending and asset management aimed at promoting clean energy alternatives for certain companies. There is a physical risk. The direct risk by climatic change or drought, floods, storms, cyclones, and rising sea levels. All this affects the supply chain management and even the in totality the physical aspects of the companies. It again in turn affects the industries like insurance, agribusinesses, as they are dependent upon this nature, the fishing, the forestry, the real estate business, the tourism business. So here preservation of ecology becomes very important. Industries which are into the oil and gas, again they are affected. So as far as the temperature is considered, the global average warming, where there are changes with the fewer cold days and nights, it increases the heat waves. The sea levels, it is rising constantly, the ice is melting. The extreme weather related events or conditions may adversely affect the functioning of the organization or the corporations. So, here today, for sustainability in business, for differentiation aspect, now we have seen that differentiation is one of the important criteria where the companies can build their competitive image with reference to the competitors. So, imbibing the environmental concern or valuing them by adapting this environmental friendly means gives a competitive edge to the corporates. It helps in building their own image in this competitive world. The customers are satisfied, the employees are satisfied. Wherever the projects are considered, the government may think of those companies who have a goodwill and reputation in terms of environmental sustainability. So today we will stop here. In this next session, we will move ahead.